What's up, everyone? It's your host, Jonah. Welcome back to the Blue Collar Enlightenment Show. And if you're new, thanks for tuning in. Smash that follow button so you don't miss any new content.
Hey, everybody. It's your co-host, T. Today's guest is Jack Lee, an Army veteran and a former military contractor turned author. He has 3 books published through Amazon with another on the way.
Jack is also a former law enforcement and has his own YouTube channel that we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. Welcome to the podcast, Jack. How's it going?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
We're doing good. A little hot, but good.
Yeah, weather's a little warm here in Oklahoma. We got a little rain last night, so it's nice and humid today.
Very.
Yeah, I hear you. It's nice and sultry here in Tennessee as well. Not as bad as it will be, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, said I was born and raised here in southeastern part of Tennessee. I'm located about halfway between the metropolises of Chattanooga and Knoxville, right off of Interstate 75. Said born and raised, and went in the Army right after high school in 1984. Went to Fort Benning, Georgia. I took basic and AIT, and trained to be an infantryman. Spent about 8 years of active duty, minus a couple of recalls that added to that time. Ended up doing about 10 in all. Brought my first wife home with me from a tour in Germany. 2 kids. Tried to reacclimate to the civilian world. You know, wore several different hats. Was a machinist, different industrial facilities for a while. Went into corrections. Done some federal contracting, like you said, security-wise. And I said right now I've got 2 grown kids. The youngest, my son, will be turning 29 tomorrow, as a matter of fact. And 3 grandsons. And as of right now, I'm kind of on a hiatus from security work and trying to pursue my writing career, trying to make that happen.
Well, that's awesome. We're here to support you. And I've read one of your books, Blood Money, and it's I quite enjoyed it all the way through.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad you did.
So what did you enjoy most about your time in the military? Because I can relate with that. I did 6 years in the Navy myself.
I enjoyed mainly I guess most of all, was the travel involved. And of course, looking back here recently, like I said, like I told you before we got started there, how I was out camping last week and everything, and made me think about when I was out there sweating and all that. I'm like, man, you know, I said, I used to really enjoy this stuff, you know, being sweaty and dirty and all that adventure training and stuff like that, flying around in helicopters and stuff. Not that I was flying around in helicopters last week, but I enjoyed the travel, going to foreign countries and immersing myself in different cultures and stuff like that. The majority of my time was spent in Germany or the Middle East. So, of course, it's kind of hard to immerse yourself in the Middle East. You can't just, you know, it's kind of hard just to go downtown. But Germany, I used to just take off if I had a day off. I was in Berlin, which was this city of 4 million people, and I would just memorize the subway map and take off and explore different parts of the city, you know. And so I was there 6 years, so I ended up knowing every little side street, you know. Yeah, I guess I'd have to say I enjoyed the travel and the cultural aspect of it pretty much.
I feel that, man. I was stationed in Japan for about 3 years, and the culture over there was great. The food, from the food to the people, you couldn't have, picked a better spot to be stationed. I'd say that was my favorite place that I traveled to. You know, I did a lot of the Asian area. You know, I did go inwards towards Europe just a little bit, but I didn't do much of that. Mostly the Asian area and South
Yeah.
America. South America was actually pretty fun, but I feel you there. The travel was great. I was
Did you ever get to Hong Kong?
Let me see. No, we got close. We got to Bangkok.
Yeah, I've been there too. So yeah. I guess. Well, I've kind of been to Bangkok, and the airport had a long layover there. So anyway, long enough to be put up in a hotel, but I couldn't get downtown much. So probably a good thing.
Yeah, I was stuck on a ship most of the time. So everybody likes to go on those cruises. I got to go on an extended one, and I got to actually live on a ship and experience that. One of the biggest memories that I have is the food on the ship. And I'm sure it's a lot different for you guys, but we had, it was gross. I mean, you would get off the boat on port of calls and you would just start chowing down on everything that tasted good. Mm-hmm. If you found a McDonald's, you were going in there and getting a double cheeseburger no matter what.
Yeah, that was a cool part about McDonald's in Germany and other European countries too. You could go; they had beer. You could go in there and get a beer. That was always, of course, it wasn't great beer. It was just, watered down Pilsner, but it was still cool to us, to be able to order a beer in McDonald's.
Yeah, but can't they drink at like 16?
I think so.
Yeah. It's and other people have asked me that too. I'm not so sure what, and I don't know what it is now. Last time I was in Europe was 2005, going back and forth between to Iraq and back home and whatnot. I'd always stop in Germany, but they never officially told us what the drinking age was. They used to just joke and say that it was if you were tall enough to see over the bar. But they view drinking in a different manner than what we do here. Like a bar would open at 11 a.m. or whatever. So you'd go out, say on a Sunday morning to go get my favorite place was this Irish pub in Berlin, Kurfürstendamm, which was the tourist section, the entertainment district. And I loved their breakfast there. So Sunday morning, I'd go down there and have this authentic Irish breakfast. And you'd see families in there together and having their breakfast and whatever. And then all of a sudden, you'd see what looked like a 13, 14-year-old kid go up to the bar and come back with beer, But it was what we call a short beer, and whatnot. And what they called the teenies would have their own discotheques, how disco was dead in the 80s and 90s. Here by that time, the disco was still big. So they would have their little dance clubs, and they called them teeny discos. And, it would be like 16, and below in there. And they're, drinking a mixture of Coca-Cola and beer. It was just surreal.
Oh my goodness.
But it was. Yeah.
I remember the bar that we would go to in Japan, in Yokosuka. It was called George's Bar, and it was the only country bar in Japan. Only one. And we would go there almost every night, sitting there playing Captain and Coke, beer pong, shooting pool, betting for shots on the pool table. Oh, we got so messed up. We were walking sideways back to the ship all the time. It was just one big old party.
I hear you.
So we would get these surf and turf Fridays to where, you would get steak and lobster on the ship, and the steak would be as hard as a brick, and that lobster would be as chewy as a freaking piece of rubber. So what's the worst food you've eaten in the military?
The worst food I've eaten in the military. Yeah, we would have what they called out in the field, if you were on like a big field exercise, like a battalion size or something like that. A lot of times at the end of the exercise, to reward us, they would have what they called a super supper. That's what they called it. And before you went back in, because a lot of times you'd stay out there and you'd go into an admin status instead of tactical, and you'd police up your brass and fill in foxholes and, dump out sandbags and stuff like that, start cleaning up, especially in Germany, because the Germans were real picky about maneuver damage. We got charged money for that. We'd have to pay for it, because they're real ecologically conscious over there. Europeans are, the green thing, So we'd stay out maybe a day or two past when the actual exercise indexed. And so they'd have super supper out there sometimes, especially in the summertime. They bring out those old metal trash cans full of beer and ice down and stuff like that. And yeah, they'd go to grill steaks and stuff. And like every one of them were shoe leather tough. I mean, it was great. You loved it, but it definitely wasn't a nice medium rare steak. But I'd have to say the worst thing that I ever ate would have been in Iraq. The last time I was there, they had bacon that was made out of beef. If you've ever heard anything like that, because of the pork thing, we had Muslims, we had local guards that worked at. They did our guard towers, and we did the perimeter and the convoy and demolition security ops, and they would do the towers. And it was this massive perimeter of 16 and a half kilometers around the perimeter. So you had like 24, 25 towers. I can't remember. And the Iraqis manned them. Well, they had 3 different groups in the year I was over there. We would fire them left and right, find out they had an infiltrator or whatever, and so you'd have to fire the whole group because you didn't know who the exact infiltrator was or how deep it went, So we would get them out of there quick. We had a group of Kurds, we had a group of Jordanians, and we had a group of, I think, 2 different groups of Iraqis. But so we always had locals working on the fob there. And when I first got there, you would see there on the entree line in the chow hall is the Arabic writing labeling the food that was pork, so they wouldn't partake of it. Well, you go in there at breakfast, and there was no pork meat whatsoever. So you got bacon, and this stuff it just looks like it's, and it looked like they had been boiling it instead of frying it, and it was just like, so basically we just kind of got fed up and had almost a little pork mutiny, It was just almost, that's what it was. It was like a pork mutiny. We just pretty much called a meeting and said, look, there's no reason why we can't have pork, and you're labeling the pork chops that we had so that they won't eat the stuff. So what about breakfast meat? Why can't we get that? So yeah, pretty soon the beef bacon was gone, and we were happy campers again. So.
Yeah, you messing around with pork bacon. Yeah, you mess with bacon,
man.
Period. You don't mess with bacon.
You get between an American and his bacon, you got a problem.
Oh yeah. It's the worst meat of the pig, and we love it the most.
That's it.
There's an interesting story behind bacon that people should go look up. Because if they really knew and we had that mentality back in the day, nobody'd buy that shit.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Look up the history on bacon, people.
I don't really like bacon, so.
So you were talking a little bit about how in Germany they were a little bit on the greener side in Europe. I remember I was on the first nuclear-powered ship that went into Japan to ever be stationed in Japan. We got protested as we pulled in, and they were protesting us. I mean, it wasn't like anything violent. They just held signs, and they would talk to you about stuff and try to get information, but it was nothing like we have over here where they would like throw Molotov cocktails at you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was just, we don't want nuclear powered here. And, so I could see that greenness over there as well, how stringent they were about things.
But then they end up with nuclear plants and
Fukushima.
And that must have come later, huh?
Fukushima. Yeah. Actually, that's funny because I had just transferred out when Fukushima hit. I believe I was 4 months transferred when that hit.
Yeah, that was what. Yeah, I remember that one. And funny, the tsunami that hit, the big one, or the 9 points, Fukushima was 9 point something. I think that tsunami was, but the one that hit the Philippines and the Indian Ocean in 2004, right after Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the one that killed all those folks. I had just, of course, we had just had the Battle of Fallujah, and they were mopping up there and everything. And I went on leave just after Christmas, I guess, or the first part of 2005. And I think it hit the 26th of December. And like I said, I went to Hong Kong there. The wife at the time, my first wife, the kid's mom, was a naval reservist, actually. And she was on duty. That's why I went to Hong Kong that time. I got kids stayed with one of the relatives here, my sister, I think. And I met her in Hong Kong. I caught a hop, went over there, and stayed for 10 days. And then I remember on the way back, I stopped in Thailand, and we're sitting there on the tarmac, and it was like probably they had the engines shut down. With no engines running, planes don't have AC. So it's like probably about 135 degrees in the cabin, and had a little mutiny there too, because I remember me and another guy got up and we went to pop the door, and this little stewardess from Emirates Airlines is like, this little 4 foot tall girl from Malaysia or whatever, with the veil over her face. She's like, no, open door. I'm like, look, don't make me pick you up and set you out of the aisle. I'm going to open this door. These people are dying,
Mm-hmm.
So she moved out of the way. We popped the door, and it hadn't been but a few minutes, and they pushed. It was one of those carts with a ladder on it, and they pushed it up to the plane, and some folks boarded and started talking to the flight crew, and they made an announcement, and they were offering folks I think they were offering them either cash or a voucher for a flight wherever they wanted to go at a later date or whatever, if they would give up their seat on that plane. And come to find out what it was once those folks vacated their seats, all of a sudden these raggedy looking, knew instantly who they were. They came in with Red Cross T-shirts on, Red Cross issued flip-flops on, and just probably the swim trunks or whatever they've been wearing the day that the tsunami hit. Some of them were like all cut up from glass and stuff like that. And they brought them up on the plane and gave them a ride back, So it was just pretty humbling,
That's pretty.
It's my tsunami story.
Yeah, that's an interesting story, because when I left and heard about that tsunami, it kind of freaked me out, because apparently that happens quite a bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And those things can happen anywhere. We basically had one here, in 1812, 1813, when had that big one on the New Madrid Fault there between you and I, down the Mississippi.
Oh, yeah.
Flowed backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember hearing something about that in history class. Yeah.
Yeah, it flowed backwards, and for I don't know how long, and there's a lake in West Tennessee called Reelfoot, and it's a natural lake. It's the only one in Tennessee, I think, that's a natural, I don't know, pond or something that's a natural lake. The rest are TVA lakes. So. That's kind of like a tsunami, I guess. The river flows backwards. So,
turned into the Nile for the day.
Yep.
So what's the craziest scenario you found yourself during your time as a military contractor?
Craziest scenario would have to be, I thought about this one earlier. That year that I was over there, and there was a lot that happened, but in the days leading up to Fallujah, to the battle, we were when I got there, I think you probably read that, got there and got on the ground and found out that there was only 6 weeks left on our contract. And so it was either find another company that would hire you that you could roll over into or go home. So I ended up, after a lot of hustling and deal making, getting on with the company that was going to roll into our contract. But the company that had hired me initially and had left was going to take over another contract at Balad Air Base, Camp Anaconda, over in a different area in the Sunni Triangle, not too far from us, but a couple of hours, I guess. But they stripped the armory, come to find out. They took our machine guns. And so we're, hustling to try to provide the security manager is trying to make sure he's got everything that he needs to be able to show the Army Corps of Engineers, who was the contractor, we were the subcontractor, but the contractor himself, that we could fulfill the terms of the contract. You can't do it if you don't have the tools, right? So you couldn't get them from the military. They didn't have any to spare. So Dave, I'll just call him Dave, our security manager, former SF guy, or former Delta guy, actually. He was well connected, and he bumped up a 2-vehicle convoy one day, 2 teams, and he said, we're going to go downtown, which meant Fallujah, 12 miles away. Broad daylight, we're going to an arms dealer's house, and we're going to buy 2, PKM machine guns, Soviet machine guns, and pay cash for them, and then we're going to turn around and we're going to come back here. Well, okay, that sounds like fun. So we do. 2 white Ford F-350s loaded with, obviously, American personnel. And pretty much, and this was right on the heels of the attack on the Blackwater contractors that had been, where they drug them, ambushed them, killed 4 of them, drug them through the streets, hung them up from the bridge over the Euphrates River, Blackwater Bridge incident, as it became called. And, so that was fresh in everybody's mind. And, of course, we go right by that interchange, traffic circle there, or Cloverleaf. And went into this little typical Iraqi neighborhood. Everybody in the world looking at us right during lunchtime. Drive right into the middle of this cul-de-sac. Not even really any room to turn around and face back out. Dave jumps out with a satchel full of money, runs upstairs, tells everybody, wait here and watch high, watch low, watch east, north, south, west. I'll be as quick as I can. Takes 1 guy with him, runs inside. Everybody's looking at us, talking on cell phones up on the balconies. We're like, all went well, needless to say. I'm back here talking to you now. Dave came out with 2 machine guns and the ammo, and had to take them at their word that they worked, though. So, but they did. That was a little hairy.
That sounds fucking crazy.
It was.
That does. Sounds very interesting.
I think that was a hairy moment.
I think the most interesting thing that's happened to me when I was in the military is the ship I was on actually caught fire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we were fighting a fire on our ship for 18 hours. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But you wrote your first published book about your time as a military contractor, correct? Blood Money?
Yes. Blood Money. Yes.
And
that was the first published book. Yeah.
Yeah. I've read it. I like it. I'll probably read it again, actually. It's a pretty easy read, real quick. You can get it through it, and it's actually an awesome story.
I appreciate that. I'm really proud of it. And when I get on Twitter or whatever, and people want links and what like that, writers' lifts and the stuff that they do, it seems like if I put up a link, I put usually Blood Money up there. It's been my best seller by far. I've, like I said, I've written 2 others, and I've recently started another one. And first book that I ever wrote 3 years ago, I'm working on getting that one kind of tweaking, and it's just been a monster. But I'm still trying to get that one squared away and get it published. But there'll be more on that coming up. So, but that one's going to be, I think it's that one. It's called The Inevitable Fall. It's kind of a story of intrigue. It's a spy novel about my day. Basically, I took an idea about my days in Berlin during the time when the wall was coming down, kind of a what if, what was going on behind the scenes and stuff, and it just kind of spun off from there and turned into a monster. And it took me 15 months to write it and started it 3 years ago. So it's, and like I said, I'm still trying to publish it. But in the meantime, I've written all these little shorts, and I've found quite a penchant for that. I kind of dig it.
So what is the name of the other 2 books?
The other 2, I came up with this character that I call, in the first books, he was a regular homicide detective. His name was Tom Skinner. I don't know how, I don't know. People ask me how I come up with names. I don't really, it's just something that comes to my head. I don't know how other authors do it, but I call it the Tom Skinner Detective Series. The first one was a book called Don't Text and Die. It started off, I was working a security job at the local university, working night shift, and I was bored, and I got inspired. I was like, just something that happened, I was like, what if a security guard was sitting here at night? And I said, what would you do if your phone just started going off with these random weird texts and somebody lured you to your death, Yeah. Because you think crazy things work in security at night. So it ballooned into that. You go somewhere to investigate it. Somebody texts you and they say, come to a certain area and check this out, or so-and-so's in trouble, and you go there and you're dead, and they find you dead,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, morbid, but you think that stuff when you're on a 12-hour shift at night, doing the same thing night after night. But it started out as something like that, but it turned into more of it kind of spun away from that and ended up as the story of like I said, it's called Don't Text and Die. Tom Skinner detective, and he basically ends up chasing this crazy homicidal woman that is luring young men who have questionable morals themselves and probably deserve what they get other than being killed. A lot of women would think they deserve what they get, but she preys on guys who think below the waist, in other words, so she lures them out and kills them. And our hero, Mr. Skinner, goes after her and him and his partner. And then the follow-up to that one was called Trapping Skinner. I don't know how original that is either, but of course, long story short, she's no longer in the picture, to not give it away, but she goes away at the end of the first book, and her brother gets released from prison to start the second book, Trapping Skinner, and he goes to finish her job. So, and I just recently started, just within 2, 3, 4 days ago, I think I'm 4,500 words into part 3. And then this one, Tom Skinner is now a private investigator. But he's resigned the police force after everything that he went through in the first 2 books, and he's a private investigator, but he's about to get sucked into paranormal investigation.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's going to have it's going to be an adult. It's a little racy. So the Skinner books are a little racy. I'll go ahead and tell you, they're not for children. Let's just say that, and they're a little explicit. But
so no bedtime stories.
No. But this one is what I like to call an adult paranormal thriller. So he's
interesting. We'll have to check that one out.
Oh yeah, we're
just leave it at that.
Yeah, I know.
And like I said, I'm at after only 3 or 4 days, I'm 4 chapters into it, 4,500 going on 5,000 words. I kind of get on a roll on these shorts. I knocked out Trapping Skinner in 6 days.
Oh wow!
So yeah, that had to be some kind of record.
So what inspired you to get into writing in the first place?
Well, and that's kind of interesting. There was a time in my life, and I'm not ashamed to admit, where I was in kind of a bad place. After I'm on wife number 3 now, and she's already told me that this is it, no matter what. Hell or high water or death, So we just got married back in February. There was a time I was in the middle of a breakup with wife number 2 back in 2017, and I was having some job difficulties. Things had just been really, really bad. I was in a dark place. I was drinking a little heavily, self-medicating wasn't helping things and whatnot. And I put myself in a VA hospital in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, get checked out, and spent 4 days there getting evaluated and getting fixed up. And during the time that I was in there getting evaluated, they gave us these little notebooks and little gel pens, because there was really, really messed up people in there too, they didn't want anybody stabbing each other. So they wanted us to journal the whole time when we were sitting around there, if you weren't playing cards or watching TV or whatever. So as I was journaling, everything from the past started to come back to me. So I was like, why don't you just, and I always enjoyed writing, even when I was in grade school on up, and kind of lost an interest in high school because I didn't like high school English, but I was really good at English and stuff like that in grammar school. So I always wrote stories and turned them in, I always got A's and that stuff. And I always had kind of a penchant for it in the younger, the early portion of my life. And my mom was she's kind of literary and artsy, so I think I get it from her.
So if you could go back and tell your younger self that you were going to be a published author, what would you say?
Well, it's been my goal. I've always admired, people like, like Clancy and guys like that, and Stephen King and folks like that. And I always thought I was always really turned on. It's kind of a weird phrase, but the aspect, there was something about thinking about sitting behind that desk and, people lining up to get you to sign their books and stuff like that, that really, even before I started doing it, that I was like, I'd like to do that, even before I ever penned any. And so if I could go back and, it wouldn't be that far-fetched, honestly, but I would tell that younger me to stick with it and make it happen. That it's not, it's not beyond the realm of possibilities. You just got to be willing to put in the work, and you can't get afraid. You got to have thick skin. That's for sure. Because there's a lot of people out there, that are critical, that don't see it as a job, job, for instance. It's not easy. It's not glamorous, I guess, till you get to a certain point. But, yeah, I mean, part of me is never thought that I'd actually see one in print, but another part of me, it was definitely something that I wanted to happen for a long time.
I mean, being an indie author, even one person that picks up your book has got to be a great feeling, because for me, just having one listen a week, I mean, yeah, it maybe suck, but I still have that one listen a week.
Yeah.
And so I get happy with that. Somebody's out there listening to me. Somebody's out there reading your book. So, I mean, it's a good thing.
And it's like that with YouTube. I look at my YouTube channel and I'll be like, well, okay, that one, that video had 60 views last week and I've got 63 this week. Hey, like you said, every little bit counts.
Little victories.
Progress.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Incremental goals help you reach your biggest ones.
Yeah.
So Speaking of your YouTube channel, can you explain that to my listeners?
Yeah, it is called Jack Lee's War Room, and it's got the picture on there is I used the cover design that I have for the book that I haven't released because it's cool. It's a Soviet helicopter bursting through the Berlin Wall. So you can spot it that way, multicolored and everything, all these flags and junk. But the YouTube channel is basically I discuss a few geopolitical issues on days when I don't have any better material, but I've been doing some prepper stuff, like how to set up. I did one of my most viewed videos was how to set up your tack vest / plate holder. I did a land navigation video, how to set up, make your own land nav kit, like infantry tactical stuff, did a review on a canister of, I got bored one day and I'm like, I'm just going to put one up. So I grabbed a can of Sabre OC spray and did a demo / review of it. And it's been like one of my most viewed videos, and got some of the most comments, but that's pretty much it is. Just whatever strikes me. I even did a cooking one. I did a cooking one time. I did pickled red onions one time. So I'm sitting here over the stove and my eyes are watering because I'm freaking stirring, I'm like, damn, these things are strong,
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
yeah,
just whatever strikes my fancy.
You're going to keep going with that, right?
Yes, sir. I'm just a little bit behind. I haven't put anything up in a month, so I'm due. I'm letting the anticipation build.
Oh,
absence makes the heart grow fonder.
I guess so. You're giving your subscribers are like, come on, man, we haven't seen you here in a minute.
That's my excuse for being lazy. So.
No, you've been on vacation. You've been doing some stuff, behind the scenes. You got shit going on that you got to take care of, and so it's perfectly understandable. Man. You got to take a break from things and take care of crap.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't.
I hear you. Right.
Get burnt
life, right?
What has been the most enlightening moment that you have found through your journey in your life?
Most enlightening moment. It's probably not going to sound really enlightening, but I think hiking up to the top of Mount Sinai at the age of 19, up out of that expansive desert wilderness, and climbing all those rocks, climbing all those steps on this holy ground, and getting up there to the top and then looking all the way around at that panorama, the Red Sea, all this crystal blue water, Egypt off in one direction, dust kicking up over there, mist coming up off the Red Sea. You could even see to the Mediterranean in the north. So you're looking at water pretty much on 3 sides, actually 4 sides, because between Egypt and the Sinai Peninsula itself was the Suez. So, but yeah, that was kind of like my, I guess, kind of like climbing up to the top of one of those mountains in Nepal, and doing the Buddhist temple thing, I guess, I should have probably picked up a little bit of sand and did this,
It just shows you the beauty of the world.
Yeah.
And what it can show you.
Yeah.
It made you realize really how, it sounds cliche, but how small and insignificant we really are, and how what a little part we play. We're just like a speck of dust. It even got my attention at 19, which you don't get a 19-year-old's attention very easily and hold it for very long. But it was humbling.
That sounds beautiful.
It was. Wish I could do it again, but
Well, it'll always be in your memory if you don't.
It is. It's in here. It's in the old gourd, so it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, my dad told me one time, he said, you can take 1,000,000 pictures, Jonah. You see it yourself and you'll remember it. And that's the best way to do it.
Pretty good advice.
Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. It was great talking with you, Jack, and you're always welcome back.
I appreciate y'all inviting me, and want to thank Pepper for, hooking us up. It was really awesome. And like I said, I appreciate you guys having me on. Really, it's been a pleasure.
Oh, no, this is what it's all about, talking to the people that are doing interesting things. And you certainly enlightened me on a couple of things today, so that's awesome.
Yeah, you enlightened me too. I just sat here listening. So
it was great.
Mesmerizing.
It was great conversation. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. I enjoyed it.
I get stuck. Immensely. Sometimes I just listen and I forget to talk.
So where can
I said, mesmerizing.
Yeah. So where can everybody find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter. It's at Jack Lee Author. You can find me on Facebook. It's Jack Isbell Jr. or Jack Lee Author. I've got 2 pages. And, of course, Jack Lee's War Room on YouTube.
Right on, everybody. Make sure that you go check him out. Well, that's all the time we have for today. You can find us on Facebook, The Blue Collar Enlightenment Show, and at The BCE Show on Twitter. Give us a follow and remember to message us what you think about the podcast. It goes a long way for us. Thanks for listening.
Bye.